Hi, Paul Brady here. Welcome to my first video blog or vlog on paulbradyphoto.com. I'm going to be taking a 30-day road trip here in a couple of days. Going to be heading out west, completely focused on photography. And I thought I would follow up the article that I posted on the blog last week, which was about photography equipment to consider taking on a road trip. And I'd follow it up this week with some thoughts about a vehicle to take on a road trip. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean that there is one particular vehicle that's best suited to take on a road trip, but I thought I'd talk a little bit about some of the features that I think are important in a vehicle that you're going to be taking out on the road for a long period of time. For myself, I'm going to be in some locations that are going to be pretty rugged. I plan on being in northern Wyoming and Montana and Colorado. And some of those areas I want to be able to go out on some of the mountain roads, out through some of the national forests, and get some of those shots that the average person is unable to get. So that's going to mean taking some rather rugged roads out through the mountains, going over some mountain passes. And I wanted to have the confidence to be able to do that when I'm on the trip. So there's a couple of features that I looked for before I actually purchased a vehicle to do this trip. And first one is reliability and durability. I mean, this one's kind of a no-brainer. So you want something that's going to be able to get you through a long trip and not run into any problems, break down on the side of the road. The other thing is, like I said, durability. You want something that's going to be able to handle some of the rough roads and take a little bit of abuse here and there. So you want that durability in a vehicle that's built well. The other thing is all-wheel drive. Great thing to have again on some of these mountain roads and the forest roads. And also this time of the year out west, starting in mid-September, early October, you can get snowstorms that come in out of nowhere in the mountains. So it's always good to have all-wheel drive available. The other thing is ground clearance. So on some of these roads, you're going to run into heavily rutted roads. You're going to run into large rocks in the roads, and you want to make sure that you've got enough ground clearance underneath that vehicle so that you're not going to scrape the bottom, tear up an oil pan, bang up a transfer case or your transmission or differential. So you want to make sure you've got adequate clearance underneath that vehicle so that you're not scraping the underneath of the vehicle. And the other thing for me was the size of the vehicle. Certainly you can get fairly compact SUVs with all-wheel drive, and however, they're going to be a little tighter, and I'll show you a little bit later what I'm going to be doing with when I'm out on my road trip, which led me to pick something that had a little more size to it. So what did I pick? So I went out to auction in January of this year and just happened to luck out and find this 2005 4Runner. It's a limited model, so it's got all the bells and whistles, and it's got 190,000 miles on it, believe it or not. However, because it's a Toyota, going back to my point earlier about reliability, I really am confident in driving this vehicle even with 190,000 miles on it. It runs fantastic. I did all the maintenance on it, so all the maintenance is up to date, and it really does run well, and it's not unusual for these 4Runners to run 250, 300,000 miles. So 190,000 miles, it's just getting broken in. Durability. So the 4Runner is a body-on-frame type of construction, which is a little different from the way a lot of SUVs are built today, and that is a unibody type of construction. So with a unibody, basically it's the entire body and frame is formed out of sheet metal, and it's engineered to be very solid and be very safe in a crash. However, it tends to flex and move a little more than a body on frame, which is what the 4Runner is. And in a body on frame, basically you have a steel ladder frame that the body is then mounted on, and that steel frame is solid and rigid and extremely durable. So the 4Runner is really built to handle the abuse and the rough roads. I mean, it really is a frame and a chassis that's designed. It's actually what's used for the Toyota Tacoma, which is a pickup truck. So it's designed to be very durable. In terms of ground clearance, the 4Runner supposedly came out of the factory with about 9.7 inches of ground clearance. I highly doubt that, and I would highly doubt any manufacturer's claims on ground clearance, because there really is no standard for calculating ground clearance. It was probably more like about 8 inches, 8.5 inches out of the factory when you find the lowest point on the vehicle and measure it to the ground. So one of the things that I did to this, actually did two things to help with the ground clearance. Added a lift kit to it. So I lifted the front end about 1 3/4 inches and the back end about 1 inch. And that essentially actually levels the vehicle pretty much. And then in addition to that, I upgraded the tires on it to light truck tires as opposed to what they call P-metric tires or passenger tires. So those light truck tires are going to have more plies built into the tread of the tire, which makes it much more durable, makes the sidewall a lot more durable. And then in addition to that, I went to a slightly larger tire, which got me another 1/2 inch of lift. So what I netted out to on this is a little over 10 inches of ground clearance, and that literally is finding the lowest point on the underside of the SUV and measuring it to the ground. So got really adequate ground clearance here. So real confident with that. The other feature that I was looking for, and I think is very important in a vehicle you're going to be taking off on some of the remote roads, is all-wheel drive. This is the V8 model, the 4Runner, and that comes with full-time all-wheel drive. So 4-wheel drive is always engaged on the V8 model. And the V6 model, it's part-time, so you can engage it whenever you need to. But either way, the all-wheel drives there are available in the 4Runner. The V8 has a little less better gas mileage, but overall, great solid vehicle. So I'm really looking forward to taking this off on the road. And then the last thing I mentioned to you was the size. So this is a pretty good sized vehicle, pretty heavy vehicle. But this was one of the things I liked about it, and that is I wanted to be able to do car camping in the vehicle. And what I mean by that is just what it sounds. I want to be able to pull up to a location and climb into the back and crash for the night. So a couple of advantages to doing that. One is out west there's a concept or a camping term called dispersed camping. And you don't see it so much here on the East Coast. We're very regulated to campgrounds in a lot of national parks and the state parks. But when you get out west, you have the ability to do this dispersed camping. And basically what it is on certain designated roads in most of the national forests and some of the national parks, as long as you're on one of the designated roads, you can pull off the side of the road and camp within about 100 to 150 feet of the road. They encourage you to find a location that's been used before, so you tend to kind of look for a fire ring and a little pullover, but you can camp in a lot more locations and in a lot more remote locations. So what advantage does this give me? Really two things. One is it gives me the ability to be at a photo location that I want to hit early in the morning, regardless of where that is in relation to a hotel. In some cases out west, you may have to drive 50, 60, 70 miles from your hotel to a particular photo location. With a setup like this, I can drive to that location the night before. I can crash in the back of the vehicle. I can be within a mile or two of where I want to shoot. I get up in the morning, batten everything down, and I'm on the road and on location in a matter of minutes. The other thing is this makes for a really quick turnaround. So if I pull into a campground or a dispersed camping location, if I'm tent camping, I'm gonna have to take all my gear out. I'm gonna have to pitch my tent. I'm gonna have to get my pad out to sleep on, get my sleeping bag out, all that kind of stuff, and really get my camp established. That can take you a half an hour or an hour before that's done. And then the next morning when you go to leave, you're gonna have to do the same thing in reverse. It'll take you about a half an hour or an hour to get packed up and on the road. Again, what this allows me to do is I can be up and out in a matter of minutes with something like this. Everything's all contained. I just need to strap everything down and I am ready to go. So I'll be trying this a couple of times. I am going to do some tent camping here and there, but I am going to give it a try. I have not tried it yet, so I will let you folks know how it works out. But basically what I did here is created a frame with some plywood, and it's really a simple construction. Memory foam mattress. It's like a 3 or 4 inch mattress that sits on some 2x3s and plywood, and at certain places it was bolted to the vehicle, so it's solid. It's not going to go anywhere. And throw a sheet on there and a sleeping bag, and I am all set. So we'll see how it works out. Make sure you follow along at Paul Brady Photo on Twitter and Facebook, and I'll be posting some videos and some photos, and I'll let you know how it works out. So until the next update, stay tuned.